Get a little personal, shall we? I asked you guys on Twitter to ask me some really personal questions because I used to do reading comments videos, but all the comments got too samey. It was all the same stuff all the time. How do you start a YouTube channel? What is your real name? What are the answers to life? I don't know. So I thought it'd be fun if we just did a personal Q&A. I'm also curious to see what people think personal is. So I put this up a while ago and I picked out some of what I thought were the best questions, but hindsight's 2020, so we'll see if I actually picked decent ones. What was your most embarrassing moment in your life? You ever get some of those questions where you feel like you should have an answer off the tip of your tongue because so many people have asked you, and it's such it's a question that a lot of people get asked, but I can never think about the most embarrassing time, or maybe I've just blanked it out at this point. Maybe there's some more embarrassing things that have happened that I just can't think of. But for me, two come to mind. The first one is the story about when I shit my pants. I told you guys some of this story before. Maybe I'll do a story time on this one. But shit my pants, went home, pants full of shit, puked all over myself, and then hugged my mom at the door because I was drinking a lot. And then the other one was I told this one on tour. It was one of the jokes in the tour, was when I was a young wee lad in Ireland and I was an altar boy and I had to hand out the collection plates for the money during communion and I couldn't find them. They were always in the same place and I couldn't find them, and everyone in the church stared at me. They were just looking at me and I had no idea what to do. And that was the first time I ever felt like my whole body shut down. I think that was the first time I ever felt anxiety. And I was like, what, 8 to 10 years old? I started young. Have you ever been in a situation where there's a big opportunity landed to you, but you never took it and you regretted not getting it sooner? Yeah, there's been a ton of stuff from earlier in YouTube that I turned down when the channel was really like kicking off and getting a ton of subs every month. There was a lot of stuff that came to me with a lot of big opportunities and a lot of money and different things like that. A lot of sponsorship deals that I turned down because back then sponsorships weren't as like readily apparent on YouTube as they are now. Like everyone does sponsorships these days. Most channels are actually funded almost solely by sponsorships at this point. So it's not that weird, but at the time I was really scared about doing anything like that because I thought that people would look at me weirdly. I thought that people would call me a sellout. Different things like that. So there was a ton of stuff that I turned down. There was some stuff like mobile games that offered just shit tons of money. Mobile games have way too much money. I don't know how the fuck they're making all this money. And not to say that money was like a huge thing that I really needed, but at the time it really would have helped a lot of the stuff that I was trying to do. And like getting different projects done and everything. And some other people came with some cool ideas that I turned down because I don't know. I was so focused on my schedule that I didn't want to break away from it and do all these different things because I was like, no, this is my thing. I'm good at this and I'm going to keep doing it until people get bored of it. But some of that stuff I could have done alongside of what I was already doing. So any younger creators out there, like, don't be afraid to branch out and do different things. If it fits what you're actually doing, then it shouldn't matter. I think your audience will understand. When was the darkest moment of your life and how did you get out of it? I think my darkest time ever was, well, 3 years ago now, December 2017. So about 2 years ago, I stayed at home alone for Christmas. And there were so many things going on in my life at that point. I was at a junction where I didn't really know what I was doing. My relationships, personal and like professional, were kind of all over the place. I didn't really know what I wanted. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I stood with some people. And I stayed at home alone for Christmas and I just sobbed for like 2 or 3 days, almost solidly. And that was the first time I ever felt really depressed, like actually depressed. There's all those moments where you're kind of in a funk or you're sad and you're like, am I depressed? No, I don't think so. But this is the first time where I'm like, man, I'm fucking miserable. I do not know what is going on. And that was, I said this was going to be a personal Q&A, so let's get into it a little bit. That was the first time I ever truly thought about killing myself. That sitting at home at that point, I was like, would anyone even miss me? Would it all just go away if I did this one thing? And I entertained that thought, not for very long, but when that came into my head, I kind of snapped out of it and I thought to myself, this is not normal for me. This is the first time that ever actually, because everyone thinks morbid thoughts every now and then. There's a morbid curiosity in humans. We all have it. Like, what would happen if I drove off this like bridge or things like that? But this is the first time that I actually actively entertained the thought. And that in and of itself kind of snapped me out of it, because I thought, I don't think like this. This is not me. I am not in my right mind right now. And I had a really big, long reflective period in like that week. And I kind of just said to myself, like, what have I done? What have I accomplished? Who am I, basically? And what do I want to do next? And as I started writing these things down and really thinking on them and ruminating on them, I started to realize that things weren't as bad as I thought they were. And this won't work for everybody. And I highly suggest that if you have these types of thoughts and they linger and you're really struggling, I'd definitely recommend talking to people and seeking professional help. I was lucky in the fact that when I sat down and really thought about it, I realized that things were not as bad as I thought they were. I had accomplished more than I was giving myself credit for. I had more stuff coming up that I could have potentially tapped into and really run with, that I was really excited about. So again, it didn't last that long, but that was the first time when I was like at my darkest, at my lowest, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. And that's kind of where the PMA stuff sprung up from, that it just turned out to be a mentality where I was like, no, it was like my mantra every day to be like, no, just try your best, keep going, you'll get through it and things will work out. And it took a really long time. It didn't just happen. I didn't just go, oh, PMA, yay. It took about 8 to 9 months to really get back into a positive space. So 2017 was like my worst year, and then 2018 was still pretty shit, but I tried to make the most out of it and work through it. And then 2019 got better, and now I'm in a much, much better place. So any of you going through that kind of stuff, I relate, I get it, but please talk to somebody about it. I should have talked to somebody about it a lot sooner than when I felt it. So please talk to people, please seek out help, because again, these things do pass, things do always get better. It just takes a lot of effort and a lot of time sometimes, but they do get better. Have you ever had a fear of growing up? Like when you were in school, did you ever think, I have no idea what I'm going to do as an adult, and that terrifies me, asking for a friend? Yes, I think everybody has that at some point. I think that is absolutely human and absolutely normal. The problem is that no one talks about it. And especially on social media, no one ever talks about this shit because it makes you look weak and it makes you look like you don't know what you're doing, while everyone else looks like they know exactly what they're doing. So people all shut down and don't like talk about stuff. But yes, of course I've had a fear of like growing up. It was more a fear of like, Jesus, like you said, like what the fuck am I gonna do? I have no idea. When I started off YouTube, that was the second darkest time of my life. Was I went to college for music production. And again, I've told this story a lot before, but I went to college for music production and I dropped out after 2 years because I didn't know what I was doing. I felt dumb. I felt like I had no friends and they were all better at it. I did have friends. I just projected that I had none and kind of made up excuses for myself not to go. And then when I got home, I realized, God, what am I going to do next? I went on like social welfare. I was on benefits. I didn't want to work. I didn't know what was going on, and that really scared me because I thought, this is it. This is my life. I'm going to become an absolute nobody and just do nothing with my life. Being a nobody is not bad, but at the time I felt like I had been in like a band and everything, and I was going to music production. I thought I was going to do all these great things, and then when that fell apart, I thought nothing was going to get better from that point. But I started doing YouTube then, and that ignited a passion in me that really made me feel like I was doing something worthwhile. Not even like a capacity for a job or a career or money or anything like that. It was just really fulfilling to do day after day, and I felt like I was doing something better with my time than sitting at home and just playing video games all day, every day. And I think what I learned out of all of that was that I got purpose and drive and motivation. Those were the three things that I lacked severely. Confidence was also one. I was very insecure back then about like my smartness and what I could actually accomplish, and all my friends seemed so much smarter than I was, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and why was I dumb and they weren't. But yeah, motivation and purpose and drive to do anything was what I severely lacked. And getting that in YouTube, and I went back to college again for hotel management and just really tried to get things back on track and try to do something better. But when you're younger and you're in school and everything, like, no one ever has that shit figured out. You never know what it's going to be like to go out into the real world. And even when you are in the real world, shit changes all the time. Life is tricky, life is complicated, and life is very complex, and it's not the same for every single person. Despite, again, stuff like social media will show you that, oh, everyone's doing so much better, and everyone has stuff figured out, and everyone's so much smarter than I am, and things like that. But don't let that shit get in your head. Just do what you gotta do what's best for you, and do what you want to do to the best of your abilities. Not all of us can do what we want to do because we're limited by time, money, location, friends, whatever. But just try your best and do what you think is best for you. And if it doesn't end up being the best for you, you will at least have done something, and then you can figure things out as you go along. You don't have to have life figured out. You don't have to have a game plan ready for the next 20 years of your life. Just take it day by day, year by year, and just figure it out as you go along. You'll get there. Have you ever had moments cross your mind where you thought, I don't want to do this anymore, in regards to just quitting YouTube? Yep. I've had that thought a lot. Because when things get a little tricky or things get a little annoying, I'm always, for different reasons, whether it's just like, oh god, I'm sick of doing the same thing every day, or I'm just tired of YouTube's algorithms and trying to fight a system that I have no idea how it works, or whatever. There's a ton of different things like that. I've done YouTube long enough, and I'm at a position where, thankfully, I don't have to rely on it every single day for revenue anymore. I do really enjoy still doing it, and that's why I continue doing it, because it's just fun and I really love making videos. But there are definitely moments where I've thought, man, I could just stop and all of this bullshit would just go away. Whether it's having to deal with pressures or like fan pressure or expectation and all these various myriad of different problems that come with it. And just stress and anxiety. Like, doing YouTube, I absolutely love it. It's the best job I've ever had, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. But it is the most stressed and most anxious I have ever been in my life doing anything. Because, again, I'm my own boss. I set my own schedules. I have to figure out all the stuff that I want to record myself. And sometimes when things don't go well, you can start to dwell on it, and you start putting your self-worth in numbers, and you start putting your self-worth and comparing yourself to all these other people who, again, feel like they know what they're doing, when in reality, they're also just trying to figure it out and go along with it as well. Lately, I've just been thinking more of what it would be like to not upload daily, or change what I'm doing, and not upload, because I like uploading daily, I like my work ethic, I like doing that. But sometimes you just kind of get stinkers. You don't get the greatest games. I'm trying to find stuff to play all the time, and I'm like, well, do I even want to play a game? And sometimes coming up with those ideas takes a lot more effort than it should, and they don't end up being the best. So it's like, well, I could just skip today and then move on tomorrow. So I'm getting to the point where I'd rather work when creativity or motivation strike me most, rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it. And that's why I want to do bigger projects and do more stuff to challenge myself and be more creative this year. Because, again, I've done the daily thing. I've done it every day for 7 years, basically. A couple of breaks here and there in the last couple of years. But overall, I just don't know if uploading every single day is really worth it. And I've talked to a couple of friends and other YouTube friends and everything, and we've all had that thought at some point. Even the people who love doing YouTube every day, like myself, we still think about that every now and then and kind of fantasize about what would it be like, how would I do it, what would I do next? Because if you do it for, again, 7 years, and some of my friends have been doing it even longer, that you just wonder, well, what would I do next? Do I have more to give? Is there something else I could do? So we absolutely do think about it. If Sam is pregnant and go into Morph Ball, what happened to Baby? Well, Alana, what I think happened to Baby is Baby dead. Everyone's like, oh my god, I never thought about that. It's like, pretty sure Baby's probably just dead. The Morph Ball is designed to house Samus and her body, and it's done to her the specifications and the science of shrinking her or changing her into whatever. It does not account for a separate entity and body. I'm sorry, it's as gruesome as that. What's the most ridiculous rumor you've read about yourself online? Oh, where do I start? There's been a couple about like, I think the one that recurs most is that I'm secretly an asshole. That I'm generally nice and positive online. I think that I just get along with most people, but some people seem to think that that's an impossible thing for someone to be. That you can't just be a nice person, that there has to be some sort of secret hidden agenda underneath it all, that I have to be hiding something, that I have some sort of secret, sinister thing going on in the background that everyone's going to find out about someday. And that's kind of what cancel culture is based on, is that like, aha, gotcha, fucking knew it. That you can't just be a decent person online without some sort of like doing charity streams had to be for exposure, or they had to be for goodwill, or to make myself look better, rather than just doing it for the sake of trying to do a good thing. Things like that. And it's just some people make up all these conspiracies and it gets really ridiculous, and people start piecing things together like, well, this person said something about him and then this other person said something else without even having any sort of evidence or fact checking or anything at all. They just start believing it because, I don't know, it's more fun to gossip and make shit up and just roll with a story and a conspiracy theory and a narrative than it is to just be like, oh yeah, he just uploads videos and he's nice. I keep talking about how long I've been doing YouTube. I don't mean to. I've done this for so long that I feel like who I am is very apparent by now, that if I did have some sort of secret hidden agenda, it would be very fucking obvious. There's no way I could keep this up for so long and then have all this secret background behind me that I'm some sort of asshole secretly. But all it takes is one little stumble, one little fault, one little like misspoken thing, and people are like, knew it. That's it. There it is. Got him. That all of these years of like showing who you are, your morals, your character, are just gone out the window because people they just want something. They want friction. They want chaos. People are so bored in their day-to-day lives by going online and just seeing the same shit every day that as soon as anything different shows up, they just want to roll with that and give some sort of meaning and purpose to their life in the negativity and dwell in those. Because it's more fun to do that than to just sit back and enjoy videos every day. So I like to punch a dog every now and then. So that's not that bad. Come on, guys. Do you poop? No, never. How many potatoes do you eat per day on average? More than most people could handle. Have you ever made eye contact with girls before marriage? Answer carefully or I might unsub Jack. No, of course not. I was raised as a sweet little Catholic Irish boy. You think I would even dare look at somebody else in the eyes before marriage? Let alone hold hands or kiss? Bus stinky. If you could be one female YouTuber for the day, who would it be? I would be Jenna Marbles, because she seems like she's having the most fucking fun ever. And I love it. And she just seems like she knows who she is and she's just going for whatever idea she has. She just has some great dogs. Maybe I want to like hold hands with Julian or something. I don't know. You're being so weird right now, Joey. Come on, stop. When's the last time the tissue paper split mid-wipe and you gave yourself an accidental doctor's checkup? Is this it? When I ask for personal questions, this is what you ask. I can honestly say this has never once happened to me. I think I'm more careful than you are, maybe? I don't know. It's never happened. I do it intentionally, not accidentally. What's your favorite 2011 meme? You know it's gotta be Scumbag Steve. That meme was iconic and legendary. Max, what's your favorite 2011 meme? Give back. Are you Asian? No, I'm Ashawn. What is your worst experience at a convention? Finally, a normal question again. This is another one, like your most embarrassing moment that people kept asking over and over again. And I was like, what has been my weirdest interaction? What has been my weirdest experience? Until last year, I had my weirdest experience ever. It's not only my weirdest convention experience, it's my weirdest fan experience now, where I was meeting a bunch of people, as I do at the meet and greets, and things were going well. People are always super nice. It's really great meeting you guys at conventions. It's my favorite thing to do at a convention because that's mainly the reason why I go to them. Because normally I sit here and I talk to you through a screen, but to go to a convention is great because I actually get to meet you in person and chat and have some sort of experience that's beyond a screen. But last year, I think at PAX East, I was doing the thing, I was meeting people, it becomes the same types of interactions over and over again. And a lot of people I've met before, And it's great meeting you guys second time because then I remember and we can have a conversation about what happened last time. And somebody who I had met before came up to me and I thought I was prepared, but I was standing there and they came up, they took the picture, they got stuff signed, and then they said, "Can I speak honestly with you for a second?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely." Most people want to speak honestly because again, that's why we're here and there and you can actually say something to me in person. This person then pulled me close, leaned in really close to my ear, whispered so close that I could feel their breath on my ear and said, "I wish you had stayed single longer." Then they put their hand on my chest and draped it down slowly and left. And that was the creepiest thing that's happened to me with a fan. That crossed so many lines, so many boundaries. It was really awkward. And I don't know what they thought would happen. I don't know if it's, "I wish you had stayed single longer because I wanted to date you," or "I wish you had stayed single longer for your own mentality because I think you need to be alone," or something. But there was this really weird entitlement to it. It sent shivers down my back. And that was the first time that I got really like, no, I'm fucking done with someone. Because normally people say some stuff that's like, that's kind of not okay to say, but I know you didn't mean it that way. And it's like, okay, hug, move along. When that person said that, I didn't even make eye contact again. I was like, okay, bye, no. It was so bad. I felt so uncomfortable. Please don't ever do that to anybody. What happened to you and your family in your old vids? You mentioned how it was great, and anytime your dad is mentioned now, you seem to get upset. First of all, I think I should preface that a lot of the, "Oh, where's my dad?" or those types of jokes, it's mainly just a joke. Because, I don't know, there's something funny about that, like, people saying like, "So I woke up and like my hand was sore, and then like I went down and put ice on it, and I don't know what it was," and then it's just saying something like, "What does that say about your relationship with your father?" Because it's like a therapist joke that all things go back to your parents and people have daddy issues. So that's the main reason why I say that. But to be honest, in reality, my relationship with my family is not great. A lot of them I don't really talk to anymore because of different reasons. That I'm always kind of reluctant getting into it because I don't want them to really see it and then feel bad, really. Because again, I don't want to hurt anybody. But back then, talking about my family and everything, I was living with my family, so it's kind of the only people I really knew around. And it was also that I didn't want to show any negativity on my channel because I just felt like no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear about personal issues. No one wants to hear that I'm sad today and I didn't really want to record, but I'm putting on a smile because that's what you guys want, right? So some of it was deceptive. And again, a lot of YouTubers do this because when you start off, you don't think anybody really wants to hear about your problems. You don't know if people are there for you or if they're there for the games. And it took me a long time to really open up and just talk properly about who I am as a person. So that's why it was a lot more positive back then. And these days I'm like, you know what? Life is tricky and nobody has it figured out really. And sometimes things are kind of shitty. And I know people will respect that a lot more and relate to that a lot more if you're just honest and yourself and you just talk about things openly rather than trying to hide it and be like, yeah, everything's great, guys. Ha 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 ha. Because then if I'm off in a video or things just aren't really going that well, I can say that now and people are like, I get it. Like, same. And people give you a lot more slack. Whereas if I'm just positive all the time and I pretend that everything's hunky-dory, then people build you up to this expectation that can never ever be met. And then you come crashing down from that. When was the first time you experienced loss in your life? It was probably a pet. But when I was younger, I didn't really associate like pet loss the same way as I do human loss. The first time I properly experienced loss was when my grandmother on my dad's side died. I didn't know her. She was in a home for a very long time. I'm pretty sure she had dementia and Alzheimer's. So she wasn't really present a lot of the time. And any times I met her when I was younger, she didn't talk. She didn't really react. She kind of just smiled at things every now and then. And then before school one time, I think I was like 12 or 13, my parents woke up at like 6 a.m. and they said, okay, we have to go to the nursing home. We got a call about your grandmother. And I was just so tired, I didn't really connect the dots. And again, I didn't have that much of an emotional connection to my grandmother. And we went to school and I was sitting in class, and the principal came up and said, sorry to interrupt, like, Sean, can you come with me? And everyone knew that something bad had happened. I didn't really connect it yet. I was like, oh God, I'm in trouble. What did I do? But everyone in class kind of like turned and like looked at me to be like, oh no. And it wasn't until I went out then that she was telling me on the way down what had happened, that my grandmother had died. And as I was walking down, I saw my sister with her teacher, and she was just like bawling her eyes out. But again, I didn't have a connection to my grandmother back then. I didn't really know who she was. And she was just so distant anytime I had met her. So I didn't really get that huge an emotional reaction out of it, which was a learning moment for me as a kid, because I was like, should I be sadder? Should I feel this the way other people are feeling it? And then when we were at the funeral, I shed some tears because I just started, it like opened up like an emotional reaction in me, seeing everybody else that I cared about having an emotional reaction. So it was a really big turning point for me in my life to experience loss like that for the first time. And then when my grandmother on my mother's side died, I can't remember how many years ago it is now, but it was back when I was living in the cabins, and I had a much stronger connection to her, and that hit me a lot harder. And seeing that for the first time, because I'd had friends and things who had had funerals for their loved ones, and I'd gone to those, but it's like a disconnect. It's when somebody you're close to, it happens to, that it really kind of hits home. Have you ever dealt with toxic friends or family members, and how did you get over it? Well, judging from the other answer, yes. I don't know if I deal with stuff in the healthiest way. I think I'm getting better at it, but usually I'll talk about toxic friends first and foremost, because toxic friends are tricky, because doing what I do and meeting people, you don't know who wants to be friends with you because they genuinely like you, or who wants something out of you. And I've definitely felt the moments when people wanted something out of me because I was jacksepticeye rather than being a friend. And with those people, I learned the hard way. It was seeing their true colors after a while, and then having to like talk to them about it or cut them out, because some people just weren't there to be friends. Even if I did talk to them about it, they weren't there to be friends with me. They just wanted something out of me. And with those people, I had to cut them out of my life. And the same with dealing with like toxic sides of communities. It's like they don't have your best interest at heart. They're not there to actually talk or have a conversation or understand. They're there to tear you down, and they're there to gain something from you. And that is a very hard thing to deal with. And I still think that I don't have that figured out, because each scenario is completely different. I think the way I try to deal with it is understand from their perspective, try and talk to them about it, explain from my point of view what's going on and how I'm perceiving this, and hope that we can meet somewhere in the middle. And then I have a tolerance for that if the same thing just keeps happening, then I'm sorry, I can't continue that, because it's just not healthy. It's not good for me, it's not good for you, and I think people deserve better than to be treated in a toxic manner. And that's why my tolerance for toxic stuff now is so much lower, because I know my tolerances, I know my boundaries, and I know where my cutoff point is. And if you cross that, I can't. I only have so much room in my brain for so much going on that I can't deal with toxic shit, because it starts to affect you. It starts making you toxic if you have to deal with that shit all the time. And I'm a sucker. I keep wanting to like apologize to people and put the burden on me and be like, I'm sorry, like, how can I help? And that's something that I've learned over the years, and some of the therapy sessions I've been to and everything was like learning how to get over that and learning how to just say no. And that's why going into this period of my life, I'm trying to figure out what I want and what is good for me. And even though that can be selfish, you got to be a little selfish every now and then, especially when it comes to your emotional needs. But again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a professional, I'm just talking from my own experience, so take it with a huge mountain of salt. I don't have all the answers, I'm just telling you from my experience what worked for me, and some of it might not even be working. So please don't model yourself after me. Did YouTube have any effect on your personal life, such as wife, kids, friends? Well, I don't have a wife, I don't have kids. If you're talking about future plans, then that's a different question. I think there is a question about that somewhere in here. But with friends, yes, absolutely. Friends and family, of course, whenever you gain any sort of notoriety or fame or money especially, completely changes people's perceptions of you. And that's why a lot of people on YouTube, and me included, are kind of afraid to talk about money in such honest terms. First of all, some people just don't want to talk about it because it's none of your fucking business. Secondly, it changes people's perceptions of you. Even though I don't talk about money, I don't ever talk about money unless it's got to do with like charity stuff. And I've donated so much money to charity myself. Just last year, I think it was like $160,000 to $180,000. But that would not matter. As soon as something came out and people say like, well, Jacksepticeye has earned X amount of money on YouTube. And I don't flaunt that anywhere. I don't talk about it. I don't show off. I don't talk about money at all, for the most part. But as soon as people find out how much money you have or how much you can potentially make, it completely changes people's perceptions of you. Some people will either say like, oh, good for him. And like, he doesn't talk about it. Like, that's great. But other people then would be like, oh, so you have this amount and you only donate X amount to charity? Or you have this amount and like, oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. It just, money's such a tainter of conversation and opinions. But in regards to like the numbers of people who know who you are, that also has had an effect, because of course it has. More people now know who I am than have ever done in my entire life. And when you meet people now, especially people who know you on the streets for being Jacksepticeye, it's hard to know who's there because they genuinely just like you or who just want a picture with you because they think, oh, famous person, click. It's very weird, and more people now know more about me than I know about you, which is a very weird conversation to have. This idea of a parasocial relationship, which maybe I'll do a video on at some point, because I've kind of wanted to do more videos delving into these sorts of topics. But again, it's tricky to do because I don't have all the answers. I'm just talking from my own experience. But yes, of course it's had a huge impact on my life. These are the sides of it that I don't really talk about. That being said, the other side of the coin, which is a much bigger side of it, which is that it's changed my life for the better in so many different ways. I'm happier. I'm doing a cool thing. I have so many great friends around me now who I've met all through YouTube. I'm in a fantastic relationship that I've gotten as a byproduct of the people I know through YouTube, and I've done so many cool, creative, fun things. So don't get me wrong, I'm just talking about the stuff that, this is a personal video, and I'm talking about the stuff that no one really talks about. But the other side of that is that there are far more positive aspects to it. Is being in the spotlight too much for you? And if so, how do you deal with it? I feel bad putting in multiple of the same types of questions now because this video is getting very long. Sometimes, yes, it's far too much. Sometimes people dwell on every single thing you say and you can't speak your mind fully, because if somebody says something to me and they say it in sort of a harsh tone and I try to reply with like, no, that's not really how it is, like, this is the truth, it can be taken so many different ways. Take the John Boyega stuff, for example, recently. A lot of people saying a lot of really shitty things to him, and it's not okay, crossing so many boundaries. Some people are kind of like having fun with it and joking around, whatever. But there are an aspect of the community who are being absolute dog shit. And some of them are even being racist and everything. But apparently that's fine, because he's a famous person, right? And he signed up for this. No. He signed up to do something fun that he enjoyed. Having fame as a byproduct of that does not give you free reign to be an absolute shithead. And I've had experiences like this myself, and a lot of my friends have too, with YouTube, where somebody can say something to you, but as soon as you say something back, then how dare you? Because the fans are the underdog. You're the big dog eating the underdog, and that's not okay, apparently. That you can't speak your mind freely after a certain point of fame and notoriety, because then you're just an asshole, because then all your fans go attacking that person. So it gets a little much sometimes. There's so many things that I've had to like bite my tongue on because it's just not worth it. And I can deal with people saying shit about me online because 90% of it is not even true. It's just people trying to tear you down for no reason. But sometimes it is like, man, it just ruins your whole fucking day. It puts you in a bad headspace and you don't want to do anything. It doesn't happen all the time, but every now and then it does get pretty bad. And for those times, those are the times when I'm like, man, I could just quit and not have to deal with any of this shit. But again, it's a minority of the audience, and it doesn't happen all the time, and the positive aspects of it are far greater doing this. So I'm trying to focus on those aspects a lot more this year, rather than just dwelling on all the trivial shit that people say that's not even true to begin with, but they just accrue this group of people who just want something to believe in. And I go back to the drama and the cancel culture and the gossip, stuff like that. It's just step back and think, if you're, what's the term for it? Schadenfreude. If you're getting enjoyment out of tearing somebody else down, you need to heavily reflect on who you are as a person and what you're doing and why you enjoy doing this. What is your most painful experience physically? I think the time I dislocated my shoulder. It was only for a very brief second. I was on a trampoline with my friend and we were jumping up and down, and as I jumped up, they were coming down and hit my shoulder and knocked it out of its socket, but it almost immediately went back in. That was so fucking painful. First of all, I'm lucky that I've never broken a bone. I've never had any sort of like really bad cuts or anything like that. The fact that this is the most painful experience of my life means that I'm very lucky. But that hurts so fucking much. I'm not sure if you've talked about this and maybe I've missed it, but is it a goal for you to get married and have kids someday? I think you'd be a fantastic father from my limited perspective of you. A couple of years ago, I thought that I had to do the thing like grow up, have kids, become a husband, that kind of thing. But the older I'm getting, the more I'm like, if it happens, it happens. If it feels right, it feels right. But I am in no rush for any of these things to happen. And I don't feel like my life is lesser if it doesn't happen. I'm still happy. I can still have a fantastic, significant other in my life. I don't think you need to get married. I don't think you need to have kids to give your life purpose. If you want to have them, go ahead. If you want to get married, go ahead. But for me, I'm kind of either or. If it happens and it feels right, I think that, yes, I think I would be a great dad. But again, if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to feel like I'm missing out on anything. So it's kind of just like, if it happens, it happens, but I'm in no rush. Do you really feel like you have finally found out who you really are, like your real self? No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone really ever truly figures out who their real self is, because there's so much external stimulus from other people that's kind of forming who you are as well. But I feel like I know now better than ever who I really am. I think I'm closer to it than I've ever been, put it that way. I think the next 10 years of my life are really going to be formative in that regard. And I think, like The Rock and Kevin Hart were saying when I interviewed them, like in your 40s, I feel like that's when you figure it out. And from some of the people I know who are in that age range, like my brother and some of my friends, it really feels like that. Like your 20s are figuring it out, your 30s are still kind of figuring it out, but you're getting closer, and then your 40s are when you really start to figure it out. So that's why I'm saying, don't be in a rush to grow up. Don't be in a rush to figure it out. Because I'm getting better at it, but I'm not there. And I have a lot to figure out. And that's fine. That's part of the journey. That's what's exciting to me about my 30s and exciting to me about this turn of the decade as well. Because a lot of these things are converging at the same time. And I'm excited to figure it out. And the whole idea of like, have you ever thought about quitting YouTube is one thing. I don't have any plans on quitting YouTube anytime soon. But it is a thing where I'm comfortable that if YouTube ever collapsed and my channel got deleted, I would be fine. That it would suck not being able to upload stuff for you guys, but it's not going to affect me as much as it would have 3-4 years ago. I wouldn't feel like my entire existence is pointless anymore, where now I feel like I have more purpose outside of my channel. So I feel like I'm getting to a better place like that. I'm not pandering to teenagers and kids as much as I used to before. And that to me was a big like overcoming of obstacles, to be like, you know what, it's fine to just do your own thing and not have to pander to your audience all the time, which I feel like I kind of was more years ago. So I'm getting there, but still a lot to figure out. And that does it. Those are all the questions that I had. Those went on a lot longer than I thought they were going to. But again, with these types of videos, I feel like if you're here to learn and you're here to listen, that longer videos won't really matter. But this was fun to do. It is nice to answer stuff that's a little deeper, maybe a little darker, maybe stuff that I don't normally talk about, and stuff that doesn't really fit into any other video without sounding like a complete different tangent. I think that's why I like doing the interviews with people as well, because I think you get a better understanding of who I am as a person. And the more you learn about me and the more you figure out where my head is at, the better you understand the rest of my videos. That if I'm just uploading videos for the sake of entertainment and I'm just yelling and screaming and fast edits all the time, that's fine, but there's more to me than that, and I'd rather show more of the complete picture. I'm still not 100% honest all the time because I don't feel like you guys should have all the information. I don't think I should talk about every single aspect of my life because I need some stuff for myself. I need to have some sort of personal, private information that people don't know about, because if I give you everything, then I have nothing for myself or my close personal friends to talk about. But hopefully you have a better understanding of who I am. And if this is the first video of me you've ever seen, then oh boy. But this was nice. I'll do another one of these eventually if you guys have any sort of different questions. But it's nice to not answer the same questions over and over and over again. Some of these I have answered before, but as time goes on, my brain changes and my thought patterns change and my mentality on certain things change. Which is also interesting because people also have the interpretation of you, like they find your channel, let's say 2016, 2017, and that's you. But as soon as your brain changes, then you're too different and they hate you. When really it's like, oh, well, of course, brain is going to change. Brain change, brain good. So I think that this adds a whole layer to sort of people's mentalities and who they are as people. It'd be cool to see more YouTubers do stuff like this. I think Felix did one recently, and that's kind of where I got the idea to do this one as well, because it's interesting to get more of a perspective on things. But anyway, I've been talking too much. I'm going to leave this video here. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for the questions, and thank you guys for listening. Until next time, I'm just going to say, please subscribe, like the video, buy my merch, please. So great to see a YouTuber just speak their mind, you know? Just be honest.